I love it. This is what we used for first gens for Kamala, by the way, which was amazing.
This platform is sick.
Top tier, man.
This is
Top
top
tier.
tier stuff.
Yes, and this is the free account, so you can upgrade too.
Free 99 account.
Free
We love it.
99.
Love it. See me cracking my knuckles, all the things, all the ideas that are coming to mind.
Oh my gosh. Well, Dr. Lexi, thank you for joining me today. So, I said this was going to be a lightning talk. I probably lied. I don't know that we'll get through this in lightning speed, because I think it's such a fascinating topic. Let me just say from the jump for whoever witnesses this, this is such a great topic for ripe for a critical article or even a master's thesis. No lie, but Lexi and I will get into it right now. I'm LT, and I am here today, joined by my sister, my mentee, my thought partner. Exactly.
What is it
Uh,
they do? The heart?
the,
It took me a
oh,
while.
whoa.
I really have to think about it. I have to pair my two fingers together
Oh
and
god,
then put
okay.
it up.
That's just too much. That's gang signs, as our parents say. Gang signs. um, Dr. Alexia Pineda Soto from Loyola Marymount University. Lexi, what is your role at LMU right now? What is your title? What you doing over there?
Oh, thanks for welcoming me first and
Mhm. Yeah.
foremost. I don't think this is gonna be a lightning round either.
I lied. I straight up lied.
It's straight up like I mean you put us both of us in a virtual space together. There's
Boom.
shenanigans are bound to happen.
Shenanigans will
Um,
happen.
but thank you to you for the invitation. Thank you to anyone who's watching.
Hmm.
I think this is the magnitude of this conversation is it's like it's a rumble. It's a rumble right now, and it needs to just come up to a certain explosion
I
because
agree.
more and more, right, our identities are being co-opted in different spaces, and I think having physical things on
Ooh,
you says something,
ooh,
right? Like
damn! It's like 2 minutes in, and you're already
220.
dropping knowledge.
Well, mostly because this is, these are the conversations that don't often get held very, very critically, even
Mm,
when we're thinking about a design of a T-shirt or why even advocate to have money or funding for a T-shirt or any
mhm,
other type of gear, right? But
yeah.
I know we'll step into it. But thank you for that kind intro. Yes, my name is Alexia Pineda Soto, but my nickname here on LMU's campus, and I think in different higher ed spaces, folks call me Lexi. Um, I am the Associate Director of First Gen Initiatives here at LMU, overseeing particularly the First to Go program, which, as many of y'all know, LT founded not only at LMU, but also at UCLA, and has also been instrumental in guiding other people's initiatives.
This is not my intro. You're introducing
Um,
yourself.
yeah, but credit where credit is due. We stand on the shoulders
Uh,
of our living guides,
oh.
so it needs to be said. A lot of people are like our ancestors. Yes, always, but like shout out to our living present
Those of us
guides.
who are still walking around here.
Yeah, those of y'all we can still give our flowers to.
I
You know,
appreciate it.
so yeah, there's a lot of history between you and I. This program, particularly at LMU,
Mhm,
and then also a lot of the. I'd be remiss to say like the student energy behind the
mhm.
creation of things, right, and how it's existed as particularly in this space. So, I am open to any and all of the conversations, any
Okay.
questions that comes in. I'm down.
All
I'm down.
right. I
We're
wrote that
here.
down. I wrote that down. Student energy. So yes, so Lexi and I do have a very special relationship, and we did meet at Loyola Marymount University when she was she was like this big. She was a baby freshman right out of high school in the first cohort of what we now refer to. Well, I don't know what it's called now, but then it was the first cohort of scholars, right? Folks admitted, right, new and brought into the community and taking courses together. Um, and Lexi, I think on like during orientation, we gave you all T-shirts. I think, right? Did you get the burgundy or the gray? I can't.
The burgundy tank top.
You got the OG.
OG one.
Damn.
Mhm.
I was okay. Fun fact: I was going scrolling through your your Facebook trying to like reconstruct this, and if you all allow me, I will talk a bit about what I saw, sort of the history of what I've seen with these t-shirts that are specifically markers, I would say, identifiers of the first gen experience. I'll tell you what I was seeing back in 2010, 11, early on. And then Lexi would love to hear what how you've continued that movement and what you're seeing on a national level. But at the time when Lexi started, which would have been fall of 2012,
2012. Mhm.
fall 2012, we had just created these tank tops, and the logo was designed by one of our sorority sisters, by the way. Shout
Mhm.
out SLG. Um, and it was the logo was on a poster, and we took that poster design and printed it on a tank top. Little did we know, like what like the significance of that, right? So a little bit of backstory. So back in 2010, 2011, folks weren't really talking about the first gen identity the way they're talking about it now. It was considered I forget the word that people used back then, but like this idea of like, oh, people were going to be ashamed of their identity, right? And I remember specifically going to a conference. I think I had a t-shirt on, I can't remember. And it was about the first gen experience, and people said, "Is it okay to say first gen? Do they
Mm.
want shirts?" You know? And I was and while I was trying to reconstruct this, Lex, I could not remember. I don't know the impetus for us to create that tank top. It may have been related to Marissa in some kind of way. Marissa Cervantes, my other co-founder for the First to Go program at LMU. Who knows? I'll have to text her and ask her. I don't recall specifically, but what I do recall is that once you all came, you and your cohort came, it just became a staple. One more thing before I turn this over to you, though, is and I'll put a link in the chat right now. Put a link in the notes. One of the earliest groups I saw doing first gen T-shirts specific was this organization called I'm First,
Mhm.
and it was just generic. I'm gonna call it, and you all quote me when you all write about this. Make sure you quote me. I'll call it an agnostic type of shirt. It wasn't
Mhm.
specific to any campus, and it just says I'm first, right?
Mhm.
It's just that could mean a lot of different things. And then I get to LMU and really wanted, like you said, to have that student energy and student voice. And that's just been a hallmark. What was that like for you as a student getting that? If you remember, what was that like?
Well, first of all, receiving anything free from
Mm,
a educational space was something new, right? I went to a public charter. I remember getting a senior jacket, the one thing we really had, and paying almost $50 for it. Where was my mom going to get $50 for
right?
the ugliest sweater known to humanity? You know, shout out to HMSA over in Hawthorne, but we had to do a little something about those designs. Um, and then coming to a space where I didn't really understand how money worked on a campus, right? I didn't understand how a campus even functioned. And to receive something from a program, I was like, "Oh, well, who do I pay? Like, do I have to give you this money? Like, is this shirt really mine? Like, what's the caveat here?
Whoa.
Do I have to sign up for something? Like, do I need to like attend a seminar for these type of things?" And let alone I didn't even know that I was first gen until shout out to Marisa.
Mhm.
Um, she came to an orientation session,
Mm,
and I will say this very explicitly. She um, defined first gen utilizing
mm,
first
mm,
to go's definition.
mm.
right? First
Yeah.
to go's definition versus LMU's definition.
Okay, tell the people what's first, like the program's definition or the community's
Programs,
definition.
yeah. So the program's definition, I know there are several iterations out there, but for us, it was a first gen student is any student whose parent and or parents and or caregiver or
Mhm.
caregivers did not attend a 4-year did I'm so sorry, did not receive a bachelor's degree from a 4-year institution within the United States,
Right.
right? And that United States component,
Yep.
right,
Yep.
for me was the game changer. It will forever remain the game changer, and it still
Wow.
remains the game changer for people in this space, right? Because I knew my folks had gotten a form of higher education in Guatemala, but once they came to the space, void null. But um,
Mm.
to get that defined and then having someone literally tell you, "Come on, let's go," you know, it's a game changer. And I'll connect it to your question here, like what I felt, right, in terms of that entire process. And that day is a core memory in my mind because here's Marisa standing up here explaining something, literally blowing my mind as we speak. I was like, I didn't know this was me. I didn't know this was a
What
thing
is
to this.
happening?
What is happening? And then literally hours later, I'm with a completely different group of students and I'm being given this entire gear pack of like, here's explanations of what to expect. This is what college will look like. Also, my name's LT, my name's Danelle, and my name's this, that, or the other. And we are your point people. And now you'll have care all around. And
Mm.
so will the rest of you. So will the other 18 members of that group. And to be wanted in a space
Wow.
immediately like that
Mhm.
was very foreign, right? To be
Wow.
wanted. And so when it comes to now the shirt, right? You're pairing the experience of receiving a shirt with also receiving this you're wanted message.
Ooh.
So that your wanted message, right? Then gets almost transfused into this tangible thing that you have in your hands, this tank top, this t-shirt. And I think I want to stress really, right? Like as I mentioned, we need to weigh the magnitude of why people make a conscious choice of what they wear. Because when I put on that tank top, I made the conscious choice that this
Mhm.
is the place
Mhm.
that felt the privilege of having me in
Mm.
the space, right?
Yeah.
Felt like this thing, this shirt was going to mean something to me, was going to mean something big. And it signal posted a lot of values, a lot of worth that I wasn't receiving in other LMU spaces
Yeah.
at that time. So when I made the conscious choice of wearing that tank top, I knew that I was carrying that first day of campus with me of come on, let's go. Come on, your earth just shattered because you found out you had a new identity. And then all of a sudden, you have these people telling you, I care about you. You're a stranger. You don't really know me, but you're about to know me. And you're
Mm.
about to know all these other people. So come on, come with me.
Yeah.
That's what that meant.
Oh my gosh,
To
that's
be
so
told you're wanted
beautiful.
and to have that be the walking, literally a walking
Mhm.
symbolism of what that means.
Yeah. That is amazing, and it's so interesting to hear this reflection, oh my gosh, 12 years later,
Hmm.
right? And as you were talking, I was thinking not only, like, yes, you got your own singular person, but now you've got a way to identify others too, because
Oh
they
my gosh.
whoever has the shirt, you're like, "Oh, you too," right? One of the things that happened after that, so we had that what we refer to, God, I wish I still had it, that OG classic tank top, is that it became a ritual almost, right? It
Yes.
became part of the program every single year to have a shirt and try to top the
The
shirt
previous shirt.
the
Yeah.
shirt from before. So I'd love to hear how you are, if you're, I know you are, but if and how you all are still incorporating the shirts, and how do the designs come about. And before I do that, let me acknowledge, um y'all can't see, but this is first gen royalty. This is a not a one of a kind, but it's not being made anymore. Dr. Charmaine Troy's daughter, Dominique, designed and sold these shirts for sweatshirts for a period of time. So shout out to Dominique as well. So what is happening now? That was back in 2012. There's been so many iterations. I don't know if we've counted them, and we should come back and talk about that. What's the current status of the t-shirts at LMU?
Yeah, I love this question, and I'm going to pair it to what we're living through right now collectively, right?
Okay.
Um, there is a need to be critical even with the things that we put on our bodies, right? Um, because when we make this choice, and going back to that first question, to choose a particular artifact almost now to
Mm,
wear on your person, it's a sacred choice, because when you're walking around these predominantly white institutions that historically have harmed,
mm,
these shirts become a form of an armor, really,
mm,
right? It's a form of an armor. And I at some point want to really transcend it being like, I need to protect myself. I need to protect myself because of whatever happens in this space, to like, I want it to be a hug and I want it to be an
mm,
embrace, and I want you to automatically know that you are safe, right?
mhm.
We're not there yet. So
Yeah.
right now it is a form of of armor, um especially now when we're contextually, we continue to exist in very difficult times, very, very difficult times. And we can go on forever just trying to explain that. Um, so what we've seen in terms of our shifts and of how we prepare ourselves, it's gone from, hey, let's just promote it being first to go, right? Just
Yeah.
having our name on it, to let's have it say first to go.
Mhm.
Let's have it say a specific thing we want people to understand about our community.
Okay.
Because you may not get a chance to talk to me,
Mm.
but you will read what's in behind my shirt first,
Yeah.
right? And so actually our newest design, and I have it framed here,
Uh-oh. What?
it's our newest design, which
Okay.
I'll publicize a little bit more once we get it fully printed. But I don't know if y'all can see it from here, but this is the back design.
Wow.
And so it's saying, for the gen, right? For the
Oh.
generation, I'm a
Yeah.
culture shifter, bridge builder, movement maker, chance taker, fear defier, justice seeker, and
Woo!
first gen disruptor, right?
Oh my gosh.
So when you see us on our campus pathways, you know exactly what ideology we're situated in,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
You
That's
know
beautiful.
exactly what we're talking about. And when you encounter us, it's not going to be in a lack of deficit perspective. And it's going to transcend the asset perspective, right?
Mm.
It's going to be like, we're
Mm.
here for business. We're
Ooh.
standing on business, and we're not going to do it on our own. We got our community in the front and the back, right? And so when you tell us, right, to voice our opinion, we're ready.
Yeah.
When you tell us to show up, we're there,
Ooh.
right? And so being able to see that happen in a space, it's it's been a mood, it's been a vibe, it's been a moment, because
Mm.
I can immediately recognize it when I'm going
Mm.
down a campus pathway.
Yeah.
And not only I'm like, dang, they're really wearing that and making a
Yeah.
statement with it, but
Yeah.
apart from that, it tells me and anyone else that I'm with, which is usually faculty and staff and other students, it tells them immediately, oh, those students are hers, right?
Yeah.
Those are ours.
Yeah.
Like, and that means that we're here to protect and also uplift, and also to push the conversation. And if you encounter us, we will push the conversation with a lot of love, but you'll know exactly what we're here to do.
Oh, oh, go ahead.
No, 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 that's it.
Mm.
In terms of like being able to move from yes, the rep, yes, the identity building, right? Like have first to go whatever your program's name is on your sleeve, on your
Mhm.
shirt. But what other messages are you trying to convey,
Mm.
right?
Woo! That's next level, y'all.
What other messages are you trying to transcend?
Mhm.
So that's the question I want to be able to pose to folks is what are you trying to achieve with your t-shirts?
I think that's such a good question, especially now, especially because they become more normalized on campuses. Like, what are you trying to do besides give it away during National First Gen Day,
Hmm.
right? Let me ask a couple quick logistical questions. Do you have a separate shirt for folks who identify as first gen faculty or first gen staff?
All of us wear the same shirt.
Okay.
All of us wear the same shirt. For now, um, of course, logistically, it's always a question, right? Finances, but we more so want to be able to create a shirt like this, right? Especially for faculty and staff to wear to
Hmm.
like their committee spaces and their classroom spaces and their meeting spaces.
Hmm.
So that folks get asked certain questions. So we're not to a point where we're creating faculty and staff specific
Okay.
um, t-shirts and just gear simply because I also want our students to just as much as we identify them as like, oh, those are our students, those are
Hmm.
our people. I want students to feel the same way as for faculty and staff. That's my professor. That's my
Yeah.
dean. That's my person, right?
Hmm.
And there's something about having a really small shared artifact
Hmm.
that for me right now still does that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think once we get to a space where maybe LMU becomes further and further first gen ready, maybe we'll be able to start distinguishing. But I want the community in all of its subpopulations to recognize each other first.
Yeah. I so love this intentionality. And again, for those of you who are thinking about like critically addressing this topic, it's important to note and to ask like who the shirts are for on different campuses. So, like Lexi was saying, the first gen community all has the same artifact as the term you keep using. But when you contrast that with, let's say, UCLA, at least for a period of time, there was a faculty shirt, and then there was like a student shirt,
Hmm.
and that there's a history behind that as well. So I think it's really important for people to understand context
Yes,
and
yes.
like what the programs are trying to achieve. Again, I'm being a little skeptical. I'm just curious what people's are trying to achieve with these things at this point, rather than just like, oh yeah, we went from should we have a shirt? Is it okay to have a shirt to like, oh yeah, let's have a shirt. But why? I guess that's my question. My other logistical question for you is at this point, do you charge for shirts or are they given free? Like what's the like finances behind it?
Still free.
Still free. Okay.
Still free. And there were really difficult years where money was a thing, right?
Mhm.
And not to say that it doesn't continue to be a thing, because we all know how we function in a lot of these spaces. But in the years where it was harder than most, and I'm particularly talking about the last 2 years, really, students and I would buy bulk shirts, would buy bulk crew necks, would buy bulk journals, water bottles, you name it, and make them ourselves.
Mm,
We would make them ourselves. Now, of course, that brought up a whole world of questions for me. I was like, oh, I would not want to make
yeah.
my students
Yeah.
spend their time that they could be doing developing their own other personal skills, making these things
Go to
when the
class.
university has money, you know. But I knew that for a lot of folks coming in, especially the newer cohorts or even new faculty or new staff members, there was always not necessarily chisme, right? Although chisme is oral history, really, there's this chisme around this oral history going around that first to go always had shirts, right?
Mm,
And so when folks would come in and they're like, do you happen to have, I'd love to join this program. I loved
mhm,
that, this shirt said this particular thing. Do you happen to have any more? We didn't have enough money
Mhm.
to produce like the really big things that we used to. So we made them ourselves, and I think that,
Wow,
and at that point I had a staff of almost 30 students, so everyone would pitch in. It was
that's
all hands on
incredible.
deck, and all of our designs continue to be student made. And on the on the years where we had to literally use multiple Cricut machines to
Mm,
make these
that's
things,
wild.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy? Multiple Cricut machines to get these done. We had to go for designs that were easier, even to like pick through
yeah,
and
yeah.
get prepped to be printed, ironed, And so even then, the story behind the creation of something like this. What is the
Mhm.
story behind the creation, right? And
Good point.
and are we sharing the story behind the creation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I think to your point too, I think the question behind creating any type of gear is, what is it going to mean, and how are we going to talk about its significance so it's not just another
Mm,
free thing, you
mhm,
know?
mhm.
Like, are we putting this in context, right?
Yeah,
As to why we're creating this specific shirt now,
yeah.
right? Like, what is what is the long-term effect of seeing 200 people wearing this exact same shirt across
Mhm,
campus?
mhm.
What is the message,
Yeah. Okay, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to reshare this conversation as people are prepping and thinking about First Gen Day, a National First Gen Day, which is on November 8th, to really
Mhm.
take that moment and pause and, like you said, explain the significance, explain how the design came to be, all those things as part of history, right?
Yes.
One of the things that I noticed just from my time at LMU and as I'm observing others is that um, we we s- us and other institutions were started to design shirts that were like school colors, right? That were sort of like within the like the fabric
The
of the
branding.
brand of that.
Mhm.
It seems to me like you have gone away from that, or what is the current status of that? Are you still following that? I've noticed a lot of black so lately. So you tell me what's happening there.
Yeah. Um, well, I will say, for starters, there's been some asks over the years to try to unify our branding
Hmm.
with university branding, and there's been several conversations along the years about how these gear artifacts, these like living signposts of who we are, came to be, right? And the importance behind that. The privileged marker here, though, that I have to be able to say and say out loud, is the reason why this continues to fly is because we have first gen accomplices, or first gen identifying people in our marketing and communications department that
Mm,
too have come on board with us of like, this is why it needs to stay this particular way,
okay.
and why we've been really kind of allowed to do our thing.
Hmm.
And it also, I think, means a lot to different people now. That the name First to Go means a lot to a lot of different people in a lot of different ways on
Yeah.
this campus now.
What, like 14 years old now, something like
14
that.
years old. It is a homegrown program that started from you and students, right? And I think anywhere we take First to Go's name, we take that story too, right?
Yeah, right.
And we've had so many iterations of people come through this space, but what they carry with them is how this got started and why we need to continue, almost like the grassroots feel of things. Even if some of the only grassroots things that are left is the way we design our shirts, right? And the way
Mhm,
we kind of go rogue a little
mhm,
bit
mhm.
against institutionalized branding, right? Because I think
Mm,
the selling point here always is, um, our goal is never to assimilate. It's never to
mm,
adapt to harm, right?
mhm.
And for right now, those colors, that font, this way of operating still equates to, I don't belong here for a lot of people,
Wow.
you know.
You mentioned the font. Oh my goodness. Do the shirts I can't remember all your different iterations. Do they typically have that kind of font, or have you gone away from it? I just don't remember it.
Oh, we've had different
Okay.
designs, definitely,
Mhm.
with different fonts. We've had a graffiti print. We have this very like
Oh,
old Englishy looking print.
yeah,
We have
I
the
remember a
collegiate
script.
sports, yeah,
Yeah.
script
Mhm,
too.
mhm.
And it really comes down to what that
Oh.
student leader at that time is living
Mhm,
through too, right?
mhm.
Um, and so I think even coming down to the colors that we choose, right?
Yeah.
Black tees, black crew necks,
Mm.
black mugs, all these and black
Ooh!
tumblers, all these things. It's because I want you to see us, you know? I want you to take a double take. I want you to, when you see my little wave of first
Uh-huh.
year ducklings going through Palm Walk, which is our campus's breezeway almost.
Mhm.
Um, I want you to be like, well, why are you, what, you know?
Yeah.
And so I I want to make sure, right, that we, even if the color that we choose, we choose visibility, right? And we choose a color that's been so contrary to
Mm,
society too.
especially on that campus.
Exactly, because this could have easily been white.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be that choice, you know, not for us, right? So there needed to be there, we had this whole discussion even with the student team.
Mm.
Should we do red? Should we do blue? That's two campus colors. Like
Mhm.
nobody was going to do white. First of all, like it's hella stain and yellow, you know. Um, but what was going to make us stand out in a way that felt comfortable to us, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's so funny because, as you know, when we started, it was in campus colors, right?
mhm.
That OG, but not funny enough, not the poster. The poster's got that bright tomato
Bright red.
red. Yeah, but the OG, tank is in school colors. But I do remember once you mentioned the font, sitting down with Ethel, because Ethel asked me what was I looking for, and definitely it was team, right? That's why it's got that that original the font that's on your sweatshirt right now is sort
Mhm,
of that sort of traditional go team kind of font, and like you said, I know there's been different iterations of it. um I'd love to get your thoughts about what you're seeing on a national level, and then I'd also like to get your take on first gen and juice, actually, because it's not specific
mhm.
to a campus, right? But I think that's part of the evolution of the culture. But what are you seeing nationally, at other institutions and outside of LMU? Do you have, like, is there like a design that you saw that you really liked? Like, do you have a favorite design from another school, or what are you seeing just in general?
To be frank, what I've been really looking for is the text on
Okay.
T-shirts.
Okay.
I've been looking for text on T-shirts. I've been looking for the language that's being used on gear, and I think we've held a conversation about it already about the messaging that comes across our gear. But in particular, I want to really uplift. I don't think he works there anymore. I think it's Dr. Tom Dickinson. I think was at UCR,
Oh, yeah.
developed a lot of first gen stuff from up the ground in that space. And I
Yeah.
remember in so many of his own branding efforts, the slogan was "Believe in firsts."
I
And I
remember
was like,
that. Yeah.
"Dang!" I was
Yeah.
like, "Yes, believe in firsts," right?
Mm.
And there was there was joy in that. There was wonder in that phrase. It was different from the first gen and proud, or first gen and
Mhm.
strong, and first. It
Mhm.
was believe in firsts, right?
Mm.
It was a call to action, right? It was a call to action to not only yes to the community, of course, right, but to people around. I'm like,
Yeah.
the action is that you should believe in us,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And so for me, that was that was a turning point, and that was maybe like 2 3 years ago where I was like, yeah, I love that
Shout
we're
out to Tom.
yeah, I love that we have first to go on these things, but I need a call to action too, right?
Yeah.
And so I haven't yet seen many call to actions, really,
Mm.
whether it's in a
Mm.
form of slogan or even as long as something like this, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think we sometimes get caught up in like the design principles, like we need something to rhyme, or we need something to have like first gen and another F word, like this,
First gen
yeah,
forward.
first gen forward, first gen first, like, but there's something to like, okay, I see you, UCR. I see what business you're standing
Nice.
on. Like I know that this is your your vision here. This is your goal. This is your objective to get your campus to believe in firsts. You know,
Mm.
and so when it came to the creation of our slogan, right? Like we wanted we wanted anybody who encountered First to Go to know that this is not just a first year program. It's not a first year to 4 year program. It's not a like your story ends the moment you graduate, right? Because you're not
Yeah.
first gen just in your college journey. You're first gen forever
Forever. Yeah.
and ever, 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 And so for us, we took that seriously and we embedded that in the entirety of what we do. When we're first gen forever. And what does that mean? Right?
Mhm.
How do we uplift it? And if anyone gets asked, whether it's a student, faculty, or staff member, what about that slogan? You know, there's a plan behind that slogan.
Right.
There's a strategy behind it, right? There's a strategy behind uplifting first gen forever. Especially once folks get out into that space, they start to read out all the build up, right? Like that
Mhm.
healingness, that encounter with being first gen almost sometimes gets thrown out the window because you're
Mm.
in
Mm.
a workplace or whatever, and you start to doubt it again. How do I
Mm.
remind you of
Constantly.
this first gen forever
Right.
ness, right? So
Yeah.
again, I'd love to see that more on a national scale where we're intentional with our designs, and because again, it is a sacred and conscious choice to put on a shirt.
Right.
It tells you something about a person, about what they belong to.
Mm.
So if we can ensure that anyone who encounters it for the first time understands that that shirt can convey home, that shirt can convey justice work, that shirt can convey pride, whatever you call it, or whatever you want to seek for in your particular campus context and what you want to do in that particular campus context, go for that. I think there is an edge of needing to be a little bit rogue,
Yeah.
you know,
And I understand that's not possible for
for many students.
everyone's
Hmm.
context, but I appreciate you putting it out there. Two things I want to say in response. One, folks, if you all need Lexi to come in and do a training and talk to your first gen staff or faculty about how to do it, hit her up, please, at Loyola Marymount University.
Please do.
And then let me uplift two institutions. Let me start with University of Missouri, Kansas City. First Gen Ruse, ROOS. I've had the privilege of just watching that program grow and evolve. Their designs are so impeccable, top tier. They
Ooh,
just do, it's just an amazing look. It's not like, oh, it's not like this, the kind of catchphrases or statements you're talking about, Lexi, which I just say is just a whole other level. But just in terms of like the thoughtfulness and intentionality, everybody take a look at what Megan is doing at UMKC. And the other place I want to shout out is El Camino College. El
yeah.
Camino College has been also doing t-shirts. I think they probably started back in 2016, 2017, something like that. But number one, when do you see community colleges doing this? Community colleges often don't. It's pretty ironic just from the sense like, oh, we have so many first gens. Why do we need to call it out? They call it out. And they also look at intersectional populations. So El Camino College had like a Black first gen scholars shirt. They're focused on first gen student athletes right now. So folks, look up the work of Dr. Saranda Bray and Dr. Cynthia Mosqueda down at El Camino College doing phenomenal work. Also very intentional about about the artifact of t-shirts. Lexi, I'd love to get your take on First Gen of Juice because you play a big part in this origin of First Gen of Juice, whether you know it or not. You should know it, but let me go back and tell the history. So Lexi and I were working. Lexi was my student assistant at LMU, and we were planning for like first gen week. So shout out to LMU again. LMU's first gen week is like 10 years old, or maybe even longer. But we
Mhm.
were planning for first gen week, and we wanted to identify like famous or notable first gens like on the campus or something like that. And it was really difficult to figure out who those people were. You could not Google famous first gens. Like you could do that today, but you could not do that in 2012, 2013, or whenever that was. And so from there, we started. I remember you did a search, you came up with like Oprah or something like that. And
Mhm.
um, I
Mhm.
started just keeping a running list of who's first gen. And then 2015 is when I saw the Snoop Dogg like short series about his son going to college, and his son was first in the family. So that inspired the name First Gin and Juice, a spin off of Gin and Juice. And then
Mhm.
my son Jabari's like, "Oh my gosh, mom, that's such a great name. You should create a t-shirt," which again, I know I'm a part of it, but I think I can objectively say also reflects like a shift in like first gen conversation. But you're the scholar on the hot seat. How would you talk about what are your how would you situate first gen and juice in this conversation? It's not affiliated with one school.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my last comment of making a critical choice to be a little rogue, right?
Oh, you see it
Right.
as rogue. Okay.
Yeah. And this is why, right?
Tell me.
Because this, I think yours, apart from I'm first, right? I'm first was so, I mean, the work is prevalent. It continues. But yes, it felt depersonalized in a
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Right? It felt
Mhm.
depersonalized in a sense. And then you come out with First Gen and Juice, and behind First Gen and Juice carried so many people's histories behind that, right? You
Mhm,
could have called that anything else,
mhm,
right? You could have not riffed it off of Gen and Juice, you
mhm.
know?
Good point.
And there's I think there's a conscious choice to do that, right? Because I mean, we think about it now, and a lot of people see Snoop and they're like, well, that's Theo, right? Like
Snoop
that's
is Tio. Isn't that wild?
Snoop is Theo, Snoop is Unc, like he
Uncle Snoop.
like but for a lot of our generation, right? Like even for those of us who come from immigrant families, maybe we didn't grow up with a lot of different historical like 90s rap groups and R&B groups, but we knew Snoop, right? Right? And even for those of us who did that's signpost something, right? Like I know that person. I know exactly when I heard that song growing up.
Mm,
I know exactly what joy that produced in
mm,
my uncle that's now passed, right? Like
mhm,
that became personal. That became a denial of almost the one size fits all.
mm,
Right? It was this is for us, this is for you, but it's in particular, at least in my read of it, right? In particular, it's for all of those first gen economically and racially marginalized folks that
mm,
grew in a particular space. This is for you, right?
mhm,
This is for you. And I don't know if that's your read for it, but for me,
mhm.
that's what it was. It was like one of the first times that a design that I could visibly see on social media, having you had your own pop-up shop with Jabari, like, and like seeing those shirts like
Yeah,
hung
on
on
display. Yeah,
display, and
yeah.
knowing who was even there, right? Like, if we even
Mhm.
talk about who attended that pop-up shop and why, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was a homecoming of sorts, and that in so many of these spaces where many of us can't necessarily go rogue, we get almost, you know,
Mm.
shirts that are that are bare from what we actually want to be and represent, right? Like, it gets, the message gets desensitized almost, right? And here comes first gen and juice, and like, is first gen and juice, like, this is us, and anyone who reads it, if you know, you know, and if you want to know,
Mm.
here's the open door.
Yeah. Damn, I'm gonna have to, like, if you know, you know. I gotta put that on there somewhere, right?
Because
On the
it says
account.
that, and
Yeah.
it's okay to say that. I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, like, we don't want to alienate, we don't want to, um,
Yeah.
have no one feel like they're not a part of this. But I think some of the things that I always go back to is that for so many of our communities, comfort and belonging is a luxury.
Mm.
Comfort is a luxury. And so many of us don't get afforded that. So if I can wear a shirt that provides me comfort, that hails something important to me, that
Mm.
culturally gives you a message about what we're about, then I'm gonna put that on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna put that on, because that for me is comfort. And if and I think we gotta really sometimes talk about how we need to personalize things, even down to the gear that we design.
Yeah.
And it may not be fully relevant to everyone else in that space, but you bet that anyone wearing that first gen and juice shirt, who
Mhm.
might come from specific identity markers,
Yeah.
that for them is, like I mentioned, that is a homecoming,
You're
right?
so damn smart.
I blame you.
I well, yeah, you're making me think of some things I didn't even think about. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. One of the things I will share, just in terms of like the name, yeah, it's nice to connect it to gin and juice, but juice means when you're talking about
Yeah.
culturally, if someone's got the juice, they've got like the power, right? And so we were just like one thing I was intentional about was bringing the first gen identity um, into conversation with not that deficit approach, but like, yeah, this is first gen and juice, right? Like this is this is about being at the top. This is about being cool. This is about being
Yeah.
edgy. That's for sure what we were going for.
Yeah, and I think Gen Alpha would probably use a different word at this point,
Oh, what
right?
would they
Like,
say?
probably Riz. I don't know, like a
Oh,
W Riz
first
or something,
gen
and
and
then Riz or
Riz.
something,
Oh
like,
my gosh.
like, but language changes, right? So,
Yeah.
like, even though that connection wasn't innately gin and juice, like, that's what outlasts, right?
Yeah.
Because at
Yeah.
first it was sauce, and then it changed to juice, and then, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
language keeps evolving, right? So
Yeah.
I
Good
think,
point. Yeah. Well, also, yes, the other thing I need to say too is, as you're aware, one of the intersectional populations I'm interested in is Gen X. And so
mhm,
that is like that's a very Gen X thing, right?
mhm,
And wanting to draw attention to like basically my cohort of folks, we 100% did not have t-shirts, right? We didn't even know we were first gen. And so to be able to bring that back for that group of folks, I'll
mhm.
be sure to like be intentional and call that out a little bit more. So thank you for that. I before we go though, in this so-called lightning talk that's been 50 minutes long, but I would love to get your thoughts of like you have basically almost like not you specifically, LMU First to Go, almost like a archive, almost like a museum. Like you and I have talked a bit about what could we do with all those shirts in the past, and or have a call for people to from shirts past to donate them. What are your current thoughts about what would you like to do with all that stuff? If money were no
Oh,
object.
if money were no object.
Yeah, money's no object though.
Always a sensitive question.
Yeah, well, it's
Oh, to
okay.
me, always
Dream.
a sensitive
You can dream.
question.
You could dream on this lightning talk.
Yeah. What would we do? Hmm. Instantaneously, I'm taken to like a local global idea space, right? Like
Mm,
our shirts are so campus specific, so context specific, right? But what I would want to take, right, is the history of our process, right? Like I would want to do something kind of like what LMU is currently doing with its inclusive history project. It's called an IHIP, and so I believe you were a guest in one of the IHIP
oh, yeah.
um,
Yes.
series. Um, I would want to do something where we have a living archive, right, of these shirts, but then also how do we take the lessons of how we stepped into our first genness in an LMU space, right? Not to say that that's the only way to do that and that shirts were the only thing that got us there, but I think there's this larger conversation of how first genness and serving first genness happens in an outside of a higher ed space, not only locally but also globally. Like
Mm.
what are the living artifacts somewhere else? Especially,
Oh,
I'm
like Costa Rica, for example?
like Costa Rica, for example. Yeah, um, because this is something I'm so really, honestly, really interested in is how the global majority,
Mm,
especially the global majority in higher ed spaces, view and see resistance, right? So I'm only
mm.
wondering, like, what would they put on their shirts?
That
What
is
messaging
beautiful.
would they have on that, you know? And even in a local sense, like I told you when we kicked off this conversation, like I never got a single free thing from any of
Mm,
my public school education. That probably won't happen. So like I wonder what those kids would add on their shirts, right? Like, so if we were able to take in like an inclusive history project or like whatever, right?
mhm,
Whatever oral history or moving exhibit or whatever that could
mhm,
look like, and really talk about process and really talk about how do we get this conversation a lot more nuanced and see what people create. That's what I would love to see. What do people want to make? What do people really want to say? Like when you think
mm,
about first genness in your space, what does that mean? What
mm.
words come out of your mouth? What, what
Yeah.
are you thinking? What's in your heart space, right? Like
Mm,
what do you want to say? Um
mm.
and so I mean there's a lot that we continue to have ideas on, but I think something that we say with our student team here is how do we continue to create culture, right? Like
Yeah.
what is culture here and how do we adapt and how do the things, the small things that we can give, whether it's a water bottle or a sticker, right, or a shirt if we're
Mhm.
lucky, right? um
That's culture.
yeah, that's culture.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. Why you gotta make me cry on a Wednesday, random ass Wednesday? This
Random Wednesday. Because
this
we
is
always cry.
that's true. It's
We
so
always cry.
beautiful and truly, I guess maybe this might be the last word here. I really do put it out to the community to think about documenting and writing about this phenomenon. We can't let this pass by. This was not happening 10 years ago. I put a poll in the Empowering First Gen Facebook group and asked people when, if ever, did their school or organization start offering these shirts, and it's like, it was about 30% said 5 or more years ago, but a solid 30% more say they still don't have a shirt at
Mhm,
all, you know?
mhm, mhm.
And so we can't take these things for granted because there's gonna be a period of time where they probably will go away. So we need to think about how far we've come and also the next iteration of this movement as well. Lexi, I'll let you have
Ooh.
the last word, and any, like, thoughts about that?
Ooh, yeah, you just sparked
Uh-oh.
something that I feel,
Okay.
um, really excited and also, really eager to see how folks in their space do it because here's the thing, like, I think many of us will continue to contend with how our universities, how our educational spaces want to define first genness versus how you and your students want to define first genness,
Mm,
right? And so that we have to protect the narrative, right? We have
yeah.
to protect and uplift the way that the narrative is shaping on your campus. And it goes down to, again, those little rogue moments. Hey, like maybe you can't create a t-shirt, right, with a particular slogan that you feel represents where your community wants to be, where it wants to go, what it wants to achieve. But maybe it's like, hey, that one virtual workshop you had, and in your
Mm,
in your title slide,
mm,
like
mhm,
including your slogan, right?
mhm.
At
Ooh,
the end of your email
slip it
signature,
in there.
including the slogan,
Yeah.
and any type of documents you distribute, including that slogan, you know?
First of all, have a slogan.
Yeah,
Let's back up.
exactly,
Have a slogan.
exactly. Have
Mhm,
something, right? Like,
mhm.
and I think again, every context will have its particular need for its particular slogan. But for us, right, like this, for First Gen Forever, we had got into a part where First Genness on this campus was seen as crucial, as essential. We may not, maybe not all of our services are there yet, but we had gotten there. So
Yeah,
now for
that's
us,
right.
what was the next level,
That's right.
right? So again, like, how do we step into that first gen disruption that is so inherent in us, right? um and make it come alive in little ways, which I reminds me a lot of, shout out to Adrienne Marie Brown and their emergent strategy series,
Mm,
right? Like it's little step after little step. And if
mhm.
that slogan is that little step that will one day emerge into having it seen loud and clear on a t-shirt, those little steps are important. And to your point, make sure we have a narrative for it, the history,
Mhm.
the living history, the documentation for it along the way, because people want to hear that story.
Thank you, my friend, my sister, my daughter, all those things. Dr. Alexia Pineda Soto, from Loyola Marymount University. We've been chatting it up about the significance, not just of a T-shirt, but as you say, an artifact and of culture. And we hope that people start to think in those terms and not just print off another shirt, right? Because we also have to think about, this is a whole other conversation, Lex, like sustainability and fast fashion and all those
Exactly.
things too, right? That's a whole other thing. Like,
Exactly.
how are we are we contributing to to like that, or what's our role in all in those things? So please
Part
be
two, part
intentional.
three.
Part 2 part 3 for sure. Folks can put comments in the chat, let us know what you wanna hear. But again, if you would love to, have someone who's really experienced in this come, Zoom in or in person, talk to your staff about how to do it, Lexi is definitely the person. So, thank you again. I actually gotta go teach class in an hour, so I'm gonna go run and get a pumpkin spice latte, come
Ooh,
back and teach my class because,
love it.
you know.
That's what you do. First gen ready.
All
Getting it
right.
done.
Love you, lady.
Love y'all. Okay, thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.